Forsaken is an asymmetrical 8v1 survival horror game in which the objective is to survive. This should come as unsurprising, as the core gameplay revolves around this idea. You are tasked with evading the killer for as long as possible, and the killer is tasked with eliminating you within 4 minutes. However, there are a few things that you as the survivor can do about it, mainly generators, which would serve as a way to tick down the clock by 4 seconds every puzzle. Conversely, the killer can sway the opposite direction by, you guessed it, killing. Now, picture me a new scenario. The 8v1 asymmetrical survival horror game turns into a 6v1. Then a 5v1, then a 3v1, and before you know it, your last teammate is on their last breath. What will befall you will be your ultimate test. Hey! Look at me when I'm talking to you. There is no one left to help you. When that N7 dies, the clock will be set to 1:14. You are the final hope of the survivor team. Hey, look at me! Do you understand your position? All eyes are on you as the final showdown commences. Hey.
Stop crying!
Now, it's important to acknowledge that every single survivor has their individual weaknesses and strengths during a last man standing. There are a couple things to address in order to clarify why a last man standing is different to simply being chased. The first and most immediate point should be the lack of allies. You are now alone. On top of this, the killer has now been alerted of your location, as you are alerted of theirs. Most importantly of all, however, is the timer being set to 1:14, usually. This can work both to your advantage and disadvantage. If the killer has been hanging by a thread, then consider yourself fighting an uphill battle. If the killer took out your entire team within a minute or two, then you're better off taking your chances with a 1 minute than 4. Essentially, this is an equilibrium state of the game, with the sole intent of making this final chase as balanced for both sides as possible. That is, if you like to play fair, but we can make things unfair. Introducing Noob. Starring as a survivalist, this character's potential during a last man standing is off the charts. Noob has a relatively simple kit: speed, overheal, and invisibility. Our focus will be on the Ghost Burger, which to many is a very rudimentary and almost useless ability, and for the most part it sort of is. Survivalists barely get chased, as supports and sentinels are higher priority due to their stopping power. This means hiding from the killer comes as a non-issue. Some competent killers will find it as the right thing to do to target you before last man standing if they think you'd be too much of a liability, and rightfully so. Upon using this burger, the moment last man standing starts, your red silhouette disappears, and now they have no idea where you just went. This allows you to scurry off or just outright hide depending on the killer's position. And I seriously mean it when noobs are a liability during last man standing. This killer eliminated everybody within 30 seconds of the match. The timer literally reaches 5 minutes. I mean, how often does that happen? But you know what? I do not move an inch for the next 30 seconds, and this 1x painstakingly attempts to search for me. It seriously requires zero effort for even the most attentive killer. Wait, no, I think he actually found me. Oh, okay, there's no way you're this blind. But even forgoing your Ghost Burger, when you get caught out, you still have 20 seconds of speed 1 in your pocket that you can use back to back, or a slate skin to ensure that they won't be able to out DPS you no matter what. But let's be real here for a second. Are we even surprised? If a survivalist couldn't survive, then what would be the point of picking that character? Wouldn't that just be mad? You are built to be a coward, but you don't have to be. Instead, let's bring the fight to them. Letsky. The art of stunning is a very audacious path to pick. During last man standing, the killer wants to avoid your stun at all costs, because they know if they do, you'll have your only chance to extend a loop completely forfeited for most of the chase. That's why you gotta time it right. Understanding the fundamentals of chasing and keeping a keen eye for those predictable micro maneuvers they take. So easily exploitable, like a program running off ones and zeros. Killers merely function off a pattern. Alright, new idea. Killers want to avoid your stun at all costs. At all costs. Starting to catch my drift? Observe with me here. This Jason seems pretty on edge. They wouldn't appreciate me using my stun ability to do the stunning, which would allow me to take a great distance. So, every time I hit W on my keyboard, it's like a jump scare as they immediately back off. Ooh, I'm gonna get you. Ooh, I'm gonna get you. And sure, I barely got away, and sure, it's lame, but the end result is victory, and I don't care about the method, alright? Okay, to be fair though, using stuns to save your life is pretty cool. I mean, I just saved my ass from this John Doe from impaling my body in two. But there's one last catch. You see, 1X and Shedletsky have this relationship, where 1X is actually the manifestation of Shedletsky's hatred, which implies that Shedletsky in his current state is absolved of all evil or something, because he's like, you know, the hatred is inside this guy. And technically that makes Shedletsky a walking saint, which would actually explain this skin, which is a guardian angel, which kind of makes sense if you think about it. Like,
Shedletsky is a divine being, and yeah, if Shedletsky is like a religious figure, like almost like a prophet, like a god.
Holy shit, did that timer just read 144? That's like 1, 2, 30 extra seconds. Okay, I actually just checked again and it only goes up to 131, which is still 17 extra seconds, but not as bad. Because not only are you dealing with more time, but it just so happens to be that 1X's specialty is ranged attacks. You are a melee-based survivor. It should come as no surprise that death is near assured, but it doesn't stop you from trying. And let's be real, Creation of Hatred is an absolute banger worth dying to. However, not every character can be as intricate in Last Man Standing as the last two. Elliot is a prime example of this, having extremely limited versatility during this phase. You better have a rush hour save, as you don't have any more teammates to refill it with. Otherwise, the only thing saving you is your capacity to loop. The only real purpose of rush hour is to extend that loop a tiny bit more. Nothing more crazy than that. Or hell, have some items saved to completely beat out a killer using utilities. That's much better, isn't it? I think I figured something out. The reason Elliot hates N7 so much is because that poor pizza boy bastard has absolutely nothing on N7 during Last Man Standing. N7 has a cloning ability, create a duplicate of yourself to deceive the killer. But not only do you receive invisibility during your cloning, you receive undetectable just like Noob. So all you really have to do is apply the same exact logic with Noob and use clone during the moment Last Man Standing begins. Ta-da! The killer has no clue where you are. If they do start drawing near, you have this funny little ability to teleport across the entire map. Now, you've just shaved off a free 20 to 30 seconds with little to no effort, on top of the amount of tomfoolery you can pull off with the clone. I mean, look, I know I complained about the slowness in my last video, but I did not expect them to remove that debuff entirely and make the cooldown shorter. There's literally no punishment to cloning. You can just do it at any point now. Any amount of disorientation is worth it. Then you have Cool Kids. Last Man Standing on Cool Kid is actually pretty easy to deal with. It's practically the same thing, but exemplified, as Cool Kid has zero capability to use ESP, instead relying on minions as they slowly crawl towards you. Again, I know they're nearby, so I'll just use my teleportation here to get away. Simple and easy. Oh. And we can put a wrap on that. But But if you want me to be totally honest, again, N7 is a survivalist. You are a monarch in this domain. Perhaps in the past, N7 would be about high risk, high reward. But after that buff, that would go to guest 1337, which, if I had to rearrange that quote, it'd probably go more like high risk, mediocre reward. Because the amount of times I've gotten sidestepped after landing a block is unparalleled. That is, if I land a block. This survivor is similar to Shedletsky in which that you need to play 4D chess with the killer to see who can outsmart each other, all within the minuscule time allotted. So yes, when it works, it's great, and you can extend your loop for enough time to completely dictate a victory. I mean, this couldn't be a more perfect scenario for me. But also, perfect scenarios aren't very reliable. And look, call it a skill issue, because it probably is, but aside from looking really flashy, your best bet is to just run. Is what I would say if charge didn't exist. And let me tell you, charge is far more reliable as a utility. Although the cooldown is extremely long, it is quite literally a get out of jail free card. 1x minion in the way? No problem. You don't even suffer slowness debuffs. John Doe about to impale you with spikes? Light work. Those particular moments in which you can thrive the most off your charges is the best way to salvage your last man standing. But once again, you miss a block, you're as good as dead. So dead. I mean, you can always try baiting, but some killers are so stubborn to bite. Yeah, feel proud of yourself for playing cool, kid, bastard. No, it's not a skill issue. I will not be taking that. This map is killer-sided, being small and compact with literally 0 item spawns, and Cool Kid is so piss easy to play that it puts every other killer to complete shame with the amount of potential it has. It's not my fault, it's the game. I'm subject to the game's torment, alright? Don't want to put any of the work in for timing abilities? I sure don't, and you don't have to at all. Builderman has you covered, being one of the most powerful supports players sleep on. I'd like to rectify the last statement I made about Builderman, that being that he's not good at last man standing. I believe it is a lot more situational now. If you have a good sentry spot ready to go, then yes, you will have your loops extended a tiny bit. They'll stop to destroy your sentry, then chase you. That's why you need to ensure destroying your sentry is the most inconveniencing thing imaginable. Force them to deal with your sentry, allowing you to get away, or force them to bite the bullets. There's nothing more rewarding than having a standoff with the killers that are just far too stubborn for their own good. This Jason sure seems confident in being able to kill me here. I mean, can you blame them? I'm cornered. There's nothing stopping them from just hacking me in half. Well, aside from the fact that my sentry is having an absolute field day. I go into more detail about this with my Builderman video, but you get the point. Sentry in good position is a short victory, and makes Builderman one of the few supports able to stand his ground the best. Or just play 2-time, I guess. I mean, I made all my points already about this guy. Useless piece of shit, really. By the time I upload this, the rework will have already dropped, so I mean, like, just loop, I guess. I don't really have anything to say about this one. I mean, realistically, you should be winning because it's a survivalist, but they're gonna be a sentinel soon because 2-time is like a lunatic murderer.
The dragon has 3 heads. One to be a murderer who will unleash death. One to be a monarch whose crown will weigh heavy. And one to be mad whose ideas will change history.
Chance is another sleeper. Look, I know gambling isn't for the weak. You don't have to be ashamed to admit that you aren't built for gambling like the rest of us. But when you see this world in big highs and big lows, you learn to appreciate the art of the field. So the chance of you surviving until last man standing is not very high. But considering you've made it this far, you might as well keep gambling. In fact, this is what I would consider high risk, high reward. Your gun has a lot of stopping power, being the highest stun time in the game. So you pair that with a bit of maneuvering, and realistically, one shot should extend your loop long enough to stay clear. Or hell, maybe even twice. Okay, fair enough. It's weird. Despite being obviously the most of a liability, your stun is pretty guaranteed, unless you miss. And notice how that cool kid just dealt all of my HP from one single miss. Yet this 1x running at me like a ballistic missile was still less threatening. Really. But you know what's not for the weak? Dusakar. I don't even want to begin to explain the amount of pain this character brought me. See, the footage you are currently looking at is a culmination of 4 hours straight spent on the game, trying to fish for a single last man standing on this character. Let me tell you, it doesn't happen. It just doesn't. Dusakars always get targeted before last man standing, because being a bright glow stick that shoots bright beams and protrudes a giant blue SOS beacon to the killer doesn't exactly make you inconspicuous. I mean, some of these killers are so stubborn. This Jason completely ignores the guest who's been hiding in a corner somewhere just to go after me for 2 minutes straight. And you know what? They don't even manage to land a single scratch on me. And no, this isn't a one-off. This happens 2 more times, actually. Both times, I still win. So what do I have to show for it? Nothing, actually. Yusakar simply cannot afford to use their ability mid-chase, unless they're across the entire map. Truthfully speaking, this is just me looping. I spent an entire day gathering this footage to present you looping. So, color me surprised if you actually get left for last man standing. That concludes the roster. Now, there are the implications of whether or not last man standing is killer-sided or survivor-sided. The answer lies in the survivors themselves. Some will cause you problems, others will end up creating problems for themselves. If you're not paying attention to who you're leaving last, it will come back to bite you. So, don't be that guy who severely underestimates survivalists for being useless. That is exactly what they want you to think. Thanks for watching till the end. You can go ahead and subscribe now. This one took longer to ship out because of the clip collection process, but I hope it was worth the wait. Okay, ciao.